Where exactly is this franchise headed? The Dolphins at a crossroads, some very clear direction from the new regime, another league deadline, and the Dolphins right on course, according to what John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley have told us they want to do.
Hey, Jeff Zgonina here. Happy Wednesday. The league year has started, and I'm handsome in pink.
Yes, you are exceptionally handsome in pink, and I feel left out. Gries has his pink coffee mug there. Z's got his pink shirt. I have no pink to represent here on the first day of the league year.
Fins up. It's the Dolphin Squad. Everything Miami Dolphins every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from South Beach. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Sunshine, speed, and squad goals. The Dolphin Squad Show starts now.
Right here on the #1 podcast network in the world of sports, and of course your team every day, the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Dolphins, the number 10 channel out of over 220. Thanks to our man on the right there, Kyle Krabs, who's been one of the busiest guys in the NFL. We were talking before the show, Kyle. I'll just come right to you on this, man. And I mean, we talked about your head spinning around in a circle like the Exorcist. I see demons, but man, just it's incredible the speed at which this all happens with the 4 p.m. deadline today. And just if you would, let's start the show by first a welfare check on you, and second of all, a temp check on our Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, welfare check's good. We are loaded up with caffeine, as we always are. And, the league window just opened 20 minutes ago as we're starting this. So you're seeing all of the graphics with teams finalizing and announcing their trades that they agreed to over the course of the weekend. So like right now is actually kind of like a sweet time to kind of get the refresher of everything that's happened over the last 96 hours as like you've seen this swell of free agent negotiations and also trades that were agreed to. Like all that stuff can really start to get finalized now. And the Dolphins got a little bit of a start on that. They a couple minutes ago officially announced the trade with Minkah Fitzpatrick, Greg Dulcich, because he was a re-signing. He put pen to paper earlier this morning because he didn't need to wait for the league window to open because he played for Miami last year. So we're off and running.
So, hey, Kyle, let me ask you this, though. What do you think about the Baltimore Raider trade?
Yeah, one's a little messy. And I think there's two things that I take away from anybody that might have missed it if you were under rock last night. The Ravens had agreed to terms on a trade with the Raiders for 2 first-round picks. And I don't know if you guys knew this. The Ravens have never in their 31-year franchise history traded first-round pick for a player that has NFL experience. There's only been 3 times in 31 years that they've not made a pick in the first round. Like, you want to talk about, like, pillars of identity of who we are and what we do. That first-round pick, it's been non-negotiable for Baltimore. They traded 2 for Crosby, and then last night they pulled out, and the Raiders had a statement, and they were pretty short and curt, and you could tell whoever wrote it or provided it was pretty pissed that that's how it turned out. 2 things that I think are true. I think Eric DeCosta is going to have a hard time between the combine and the start of the league year and years forward. He's the GM of the Ravens, getting teams to really engage with him on trade talks for a couple of years after something like this. Is the Raiders went out and spent $250 million on free agents. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we're not trading you 2 first-round picks for cost control players. You have Max Crosby again. And the other thing is, I do think the Ravens are better off. You sign Trey Hendrickson for a contract that's cheaper. You keep the 2 first-round picks. So, like, I get why Baltimore plays it that way. It's hard to really say with any level of certainty where the physical element of that and Crosby, and that was what they had reported was, oh, he failed his physical. I don't know the truth there. But I think DeCosta, it's a bad look for DeCosta, but I understand why they did it because I look at the outcome and I'm like, yeah, I think I'd probably rather have option B and what was behind door number 2 too.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. But again, like you said, now the Raiders are scrambling with their salary cap. That's for sure.
What could that be, Kyle? What could that be? I mean, is it legit? I mean, they had to have known about Max Crosby's health. This isn't just, I mean, to me, it just doesn't seem like it's completely health related. It feels like something else. And now they're moving on reportedly to Trey Hendrickson. But to send a guy like Max Crosby back from where he came, what in the world could have happened? What did they see there that they couldn't have known before?
So he's like less than 2 months removed from a meniscus repair, not even like a trim, like a meniscus repair. he wasn't going to pass a physical. And it was more, you have to project his recovery to what that looks like. But it sounds like Baltimore had more of a concern with like the longevity on how long they felt he could play at a high level based on what the condition of his knee was. So it was less about the meniscus and more about, hey, we think this might turn south on us pretty fast, and we don't think it justifies the asking price.
And we thought maybe that, that would be something that they might redo the deal with different terms, but that doesn't look like that would work out either.
Yeah, I don't think I certainly wouldn't think the Raiders and Ravens want to sit here and renegotiate a trade after the way that it ended, right? So it'll be fascinating to see what kind of market, like the Raiders are now, you can kind of see they're posturing through the insiders that they're maybe going to just keep Crosby and roll with him for the year. But I think a team that's at the juncture that they're at, it would still behoove them to get what they can for Crosby and kind of embrace that youth movement would be what I think.
Yeah, I still think that someone will come and trade for him. It's not going to be 2 first rounders.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was floated around today. It'll be like a first and a second, or third probably. But I think in the end, whoever gets him now it's not going to be as expensive. But I did read, so I saw a little blurb this morning that they had the plans to have Crosby and, the other, what's his name? I forgot his name already. The guy they just signed, right? They wanted both of them, and they're going to try to get both of them. But, that's just another posturing move by Baltimore.
Hey, we got some breaking news here on the program. Bradley Chubb was designated as a post-June 1st release and has already agreed to terms on a 3-year, $43.5 million contract with the Buffalo Bills.
Oh,
nice.
Minka to the Jets, Chubb to the Bills. Oh, come on, Kyle. Say it ain't so.
That's actually he gets $29 million in guaranteed money on that 3-year deal. That's a pretty, and that price point, it's worth up to $52 million. So it's like 15 to, I'm going to do the math in real time. It's like 15 to 18 per season with incentives. That's handsome money for Brad. And I think that he did well for himself. And with the $29 million in guarantees, Buffalo's certainly kind of been kicking around looking for pass rush help. It sounds like they've been in on like the Max Crosbys and the Trey Hendricksons of the world. And this looks like the pivot for them.
That's crazy, man. When you think about this, I want to go to you first, Kyle, and then Z. I mean, Minka to the Jets, Bradley Chubb to the Bills. When you let things go that far off the track with this runaway train that your division rivals, if you can call them rivals anymore, are picking you clean. That's about the lowest of the low, Kyle.
Well, yes, you got to run your own race. So I'm going to make an analogy here that some people might resonate with. I don't expect either one of you to resonate with this, but there's a cartoon. It's called Bluey, right? If you're a parent right now, you probably watch Bluey or you're familiar with Bluey. And one of the episodes is called Baby Race, right? And the concept of the baby race is the mom is watching how fast her baby learns how to sit up and crawl, but then in trying to walk, the neighbor kid learns how to walk faster, right? And then the mom thinks she's doing something wrong because the neighbor kid figured out how to walk faster than Bluey did. You got to run your own race. And that was like the messaging, the moral of the story. And there's the heartwarming moral at the end of the story is, hey, you're doing great. You just got to enjoy this process for what it is for yourself. And I think that for the Dolphins with this rebuild, like Minka to New York stinks. Yeah, because I like Minka. Bradley to the Bills stinks. I like him. But we got to run our own race right now, right? Like we got so much stuff to handle. And realistically, by the time we are kind of getting into an optimized window to compete, it's probably 2028. We might make some noise in 2027. Maybe we overperform in 2026, but realistically, like the amount of work that you got to do to stack the roster, where are those guys going to be in 2 years, year and a half? It's hard to say. So, yeah, I hate seeing Bradley go to Buffalo, and I wish him all the best. But we're running our baby race right now. We just got to figure out how to walk.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, like Kyle said, this team really year 3 of this rebuild is when you're going to see what is really the team's going to be like. Because this year they're going to try to figure out the cap issues, and you can't keep everybody. You always got to let some good players go to bring in some younger players and develop in the system and for the long haul. Again, like we talked about Baltimore earlier, they lead the league in compensatory picks because of their drafting. They build these good teams off their draft. And I know Sullivan, that's what he wants to do here. And that's the only way to do it. You got to get rid of players and take any draft pick you can get. And some of these big ticket guys, you got to let them walk every once in a while as they're getting older in their careers to save the money and to develop the young cats on the roster.
Interesting. And Kyle, too, I want to go to you and Z on this back-to-back. The Eagles fans and the websites and the real insiders with the Eagles are talking like the Dolphins just stole someone from Philly. And we're talking about Jonathan Uche, who's had double-digit sacks in his career before. So while we talk about Chubb leaving and where he's going, did the Dolphins get as big a steal? Because I'm looking at Inside Eagles right now, and Inside Eagles is saying that he was the most underrated piece to the 2025 Eagles defense, that that's a very, very big loss for Philly and a potential, a real big hit for John Eric Sullivan and the Dolphins.
Yeah, so from what I knew of Uche during his time in New England, and then he gets traded, he came back on a one-year deal to New England, and he was traded at the trade deadline to the Chiefs, and then last year was in Philadelphia. A dude can rush the passer. He has twitch, he's got speed, he's got some moves in his bag, but he's not a really heavy guy, right? He's 240, 245, somewhere in that ballpark. So where he wins is with the rushing from space. And I think you can get into some long and late situations, and, him and Chop Robinson, you got some real-time burst off the edge, right? But the early down stuff is where it's been an issue for him. He's never played more than 400 snaps in a single season. And a lot of that comes down to 1st and 10 or 12 personnel or 21, and they're going to load up and play us heavy. You don't see kind of that point of attack consistency that you'd probably like to be an early down player. So I really like the signing of Uche for Miami as a role player, and I would expect it's probably less than $3 million, right? His last 2 years was like 1.9 in Philly last year, and then 3 years the year before that in New England. So cost effective, very good at what he does in a specific kind of role, as long as you don't ask him to be something that he's not. I think this can be a really successful role player signing for Miami.
Yeah, I agree with Kyle. I don't think this is like your main guy out there, first, second, and third down. I mean, this is a role player guy who's going to have his role, maybe a pass rush guy, a spell guy, maybe play some special teams or whatever. It didn't cost a lot to go get him. And, he's going to fill that role because, again, we talked about it, throughout the season, through the end of the season and in the beginning of the offseason. They got to put people in that room, just like the quarterback room. You got to fill that room with some people. And that's what they're doing. They're getting guys that fit certain, roles on the defense and in the time of the game when they're going to be used. And that's what they're doing. And I think it's a great move for the Dolphins.
Z, this is for you, man. And Kyle, maybe pass this on. I'm wondering, because it reminds me of when, and Kyle, you can comment on this too, actually. Remember when the Dolphins brought in Rob Burnett from Baltimore? It kind of reminds me that when you talk about that kind of a role, Z had a guy like that on his own defense in Miami when they brought in Rob Burnett from Baltimore. So it seems like similar to that kind of move.
Z, did you want to chime in on that?
When you talk about that kind of a role.
Well, when Rob came in, and I had to wait a year to get my number because of Rob, but that's what Rob was. He came
I'm
in
almost ticking you off
he
somehow.
Kind of solidified what was going on there with, some of the older guys and the younger guys. He fit their role. He was a leader. He's more of a soundboard, that Clarence Brooks, I'm saying, they used in that room to get get his message across, and I only played that 1 year with Rob, and, it was fun, but again, he was a veteran to teach us young cats, not that I was young, I was going into my 11th year, but, I'm younger than him, thank God. But, it's good. And that's kind of what they do. You do, you bring in guys that fit a certain role in the room as a role player.
Yeah. And I think, especially with, I think Chop still 23, right? Like a really young guy, can probably be a sponge. I see some parallels there where, I think maybe Jalen Phillips had some of that, and the overlap that Jalen and Chop had, it was kind of like they had the same role as the same rusher on the team, so they didn't get to share the field a lot. But Bradley was like a different style pass rusher, right, than what Chop is. So as I reflect on the style of play that Josh Uche plays, I think maybe there is some value for getting like-minded guys that can bounce ideas off of each other too. And I think that's obviously such a big piece of the puzzle for what needs to happen for Chop to kind of get back to what his second half of rookie season performance was like, and getting guys in there that have a diverse bag to how to use your speed to set up counters is I think it'd be really helpful for him.
There's a lot of leadership on defense too, with Minka gone, and obviously, with Bradley Chubb, who kind of held that room together last year, Kyle, when Jalen got traded. But the money that Jalen got in Carolina and the money that Chubb's going to get in Buffalo, man, it shows you what a premium it is for pass rushers in the NFL. To Z's point, right. You're saying this all the time, Z. Up to that point. So, I mean, it definitely is. It's a premium. It's worth a flyer. It's worth a shot. And if it works out as well as you think it can, and at the top of the scale, then it's a big time home run. And if it blows up in your face and he doesn't even make the team, which I doubt, that would be worst case scenario, but you're not sacrificing a lot. You're not missing a lot, but bringing more leadership into that room and bringing a guy who can get around that edge and get a hit on the QB and disrupt the offense a little bit is a big thing as well. All right, it's Dolphin Squad Show, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and the #1 podcast network. We haven't talked about Malik Willis yet on this show. Who's he going to throw the ball to besides Jalen Waddle? That's an interesting question facing the Dolphins now that they've addressed the pass rushing need. What is next? Our own Kyle Krabs will let you know, and then Z, of course, will bring you that unique insight that only a former player and a guy who has had the decorated career he has can bring you. It's Dolphin Squad Show. Kyle's got 5-hour energy, and then we keep it rocking right here on your Wednesday.
I want to welcome you guys to the 5-hour energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like confetti, phrase, and cotton candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I have my #1 pick for the 5-hour energy flavor draft. I love, first and foremost, the 5-hour energy gives you a boost with 0 sugar, so you're not drinking your calories. And I'm also a big fan of the fact that they are always pushing and creating new flavors to try something new that can keep you on your toes. But for my #1 pick, it's cherry. It's a bold cherry flavor, sweet with a light tart edge, smooth and easy to recognize with that slightly tangy finish. Find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots available online at the number 5hourenergy.com or Amazon.
There we have it right there. 5-hour energy, man. We need 5-hour energy right now. Kyle needs it more than anybody with everything going on with, the news cycle is just nonstop. Just keep hitting refresh throughout the show. One thing, and we're going to get to Malik Willis in a minute, but he's looking more and more like a bargain. Did you see, Kyle, $88 million, 2 years for Daniel Jones? That was a stunner from the Colts. That's a lot of money for a guy coming off an injury like that who's had 3/4 of one really good year.
Yeah, Daniel Jones got paid handsomely. And, it was kind of reported that the negotiations there that prompted the transition tag was the Colts. His reps asked the Colts at first for $50 million. And it actually ends up being, from an incentive perspective, it could reach 2 years, $100 million. So he could get $50 million per season. So it really is, I think it's the most expensive 2-year contract that's ever been given out in league history. And it is no joke as far as the compensation there. But that's the quarterback wilderness, right? And since Andrew Luck left, they have had to endure the quarterback wilderness, unlike few teams. And what they're willing to do to avoid that moving forward is obviously pay Daniel Jones what Daniel Jones is getting paid.
Yeah, and when you think about that, it makes the Malik Willis signing look like even more of a bargain, does it not, Kyle?
Yeah, I think there's the challenge with the Malik contract is just how small the sample size is of time on task and body of work. But if you're comfortable with the cost for what the payoff is, and you've seen all the behind the scenes things that Malik Willis has provided, then yeah, I think it's a great swing of the bat, and I think it is cost effective for where the Dolphins are at, and a chance to kind of skip the line. I mean, people are focused on the cash for Malik Willis. But Fernando Mendoza is going to get $39 million in cash this year as the number 1 overall pick. As a guy who's played no time in the NFL, right? I mean, that's almost as much cash for his signing bonus and year 1 salary as what Malik's getting across 2 years. So if you're willing to just embrace the free agency element with a guy that you know well, the economics of it are no different than taking a swing on a draft pick. But it's actually significantly cheaper, and you don't have to spend the draft pick.
Z, what are your thoughts on that compared to Jones and the other QB deals for what the Dolphins get Willis for?
You're muted, Z. Welcome back.
Oh, now at least I hear Gries now finally.
Don't take us out. Leave it.
Yeah,
don't take anybody out of any spot.
I'm not moving. I'm not touching anything.
Leave me here. Leave me here on the third base. I'm happy.
All right.
Because I'm almost home. Almost home, baby. I think it's a heck of a deal that, we got this kid at a good bargain price for a starting quarterback in this league, without a doubt. As a flyer, I know it's a flyer, but I think the kid's gonna do some good things for us here, and it's great. We didn't overspend. We talked about it's gonna be about in the low 20s for it to get this kid in the building, and we got him. And I think good things are gonna happen. Daniel Jones, he had a heck of a year last year, but who knows? He had a great years in New York, and they let him go. You know what I'm saying? So I think this is a good fit for us. It's a good fit in the money-wise. Moving forward, we're still going to fill that room with some draft picks eventually, hopefully, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and keep in mind when you're questioning, he's only got 6 career starts. He was good enough to start 3 games as a rookie, first of all, in Tennessee, but just keep in mind the amount of time that John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley have spent with him. Just keep in mind the way that they know him, and that was their guy from day one. Everybody's been saying, Kyle, behind the scenes, Hafley's been all about Willis from the beginning, and Sully too. And we can call him Sully now too, right? But that's the guy they wanted, and they know him better than anybody. They've seen his work ethic. They've seen him day in and day out. They know him better than anyone. So it's a new regime, and it's hard for Dolphins fans to trust right now, but you can't blame the X, and you can't bring the X into the new relationship. It never works.
Yeah, it's I was talking to somebody who's on the beat. Isaiah Smalls was asking, why can't fans just see how this evaluation plays out? It's trust issues, right? Like the fan base has endured so many different regime changes and talking points and different versions, and you get a little skeptical, right? And I understand it, but it's especially for me with Sully, this was my guy for the post. And I like a lot of what they did to kind of move chess pieces, getting ready for this first free agency window. We're starting to see some trickling in of free agent signings, and I see what the vision is for some guys. Obviously, it's going to take some time. You're going to be limited to start. And Willis, I don't know if he's going to end up being a good NFL starter, a great NFL starter, an okay NFL starter, if he's not going to work as an NFL starter. But I very clearly see the traits. I liked him coming out of Liberty for what he was, knowing that he was going to take some time. Well, now he's got some time, and he's familiar with the scheme, and they're going to run a similar branch of the same offense. And I do think, they got a pay cut ironed out for Austin Jackson to keep Austin Jackson at right tackle. Now, how long he stays healthy is a different conversation altogether, but, there's not a black hole at right tackle. Aaron Brewer's an all-pro center, and that's not just like an opinion, that's fact. And then Patrick Paul was very good to great last year at left tackle, I thought. So you have some pieces on the offensive line. You got A-Chain, you got Waddle. You have some players to work with. I think he's going to do a lot of nice things. Now, where the ceiling is and where the floor is, we have to figure out, right? But because it's a cost-effective swing, and it's not the kind that's going to, as Sully talked about when he did his opening press conference, he talked about, we're going to sort out the quarterback position, but we're not going to ruin the infrastructure of the team to do so. They didn't ruin the infrastructure of the team with this contract. It's actually one that they can kind of roll with moving forward pretty flexibly.
Yeah, no doubt. And Z, that's something that, you got your leader in the building. And one thing that I really thought was interesting from Jeff Hafley on this one, and it kind of flew under the radar, but when he was the scout team quarterback, speaking of Malik Willis in Green Bay, he would have to do very specific things to help the first string defense. And Z, you can really speak to this, right? Get ready for the next opponent, and that's what he did. And they'd have to tell him, hey, don't scramble so much on this one. You got to stay in the pocket. But basically what Hafley was saying, whoever they were playing, whatever type of quarterback they were playing, he was adept at all those things. And, Hafley saying he always did a really great job and gave us everything he had. But no matter what style of QB you asked him to emulate, he could do it all. And that's rare.
Yeah, well, yes, it is rare because, sometimes like nowadays, you play some of these quarterbacks that scramble a lot, that run the ball like a Lamar Jackson, whatever. If you don't have that kind of quarterback in your building as a backup, first or second team or on a practice squad, you make a receiver do it just to give the defense the look. Now, a little side story for you, Gries. The best I've ever seen do it on a team that I was on was Mike Tomczak.
Really?
He emulated, especially like Marino and Elway and Montana and Young. He had all their mannerisms down to a T. How they stood in the pocket, how they would stand before they get the ball. It was unbelievable.
Mike Tomczak?
Yeah, Tomczak was unbelievable.
Okay.
We played in Pittsburgh together, and I was, as a rookie, I was in awe of it. Like, this dude knows his stuff, and he kind of made fun. Had a fun time doing it. He was a backup to Neil O'Donnell back then, and but he was really good. And I guess they said Favre was good at it too. But I know him, but I never played with him. But Tomczak was unbelievable with it.
Wow, there's a name I don't know if I ever would have heard that name again if it wasn't for you saying it right now. He's blast from the past, Mike Tomczak. But crazy. I want to jump into now with you, Kyle, and UZ as well, because they got their guy in Willis. They got him on a team-friendly deal that Kyle's talked about a million times and broken down. I would love him at this price. Got him at this price. There's a hole at the WR2 spot. Obviously Minka Fitzpatrick's gone. There's a hole in the back of the secondary, and they still need pass rush and maybe some more offensive line help, but they're not going there in the first round. Kyle, is this the moves that they've made so far, anything changing from your standpoint heading into the draft?
Did I hear you say you don't think the Dolphins will draft an offensive lineman in the first round?
Not with pick 11, I don't think.
They would. If Francis Marino there at 11, you don't think they pick Francis Marino and give him the Laramie Tunsil treatment and play him at guard year one, and then Austin Jackson leaves and then kick him to right tackle?
I'll go on one of those infomercials and get one of those Chia Pet things for the top of my head. Brother, if they take an offensive
don't make a promise you're not willing to keep.
I hope they do. I hope they do. Oh my God.
I'll regrow my hair, guys.
I think for me, the positions that I would consider like off base at 11 is really running back, probably tight end, although I like the Oregon kid a lot, Kenyon Sadiq, but I think that'd be probably pretty rich at 11, especially with where the team's at and wanting to build things with the trenches and the inside out. And I'd be surprised with a defensive tackle. And then linebacker if Sonny Styles isn't there, the Ohio State kid. I think offensive lineman, Ioane, the guard from Penn State's my favorite offensive lineman in the class. I think if him or Maui Noah is there, you'd have a really hard time telling me it's not a great pick. Wide receiver, Jordan Tyson's really good. There's some medical stuff there. Carnell Tate's a big-bodied vertical guy that could really diversify the room. Quarterback, obviously, with Mendoza going off the board, I don't think that'll be in play for them either, and I think that'd be a mistake after they just gave out the Willis contract. But then you go to the edge group. I think there's a bunch of names there. Corner, I think there's a name that I really like there, Mansour Delane, Caleb Downs at safety. So I could see a very broad menu of picks, and I don't think anything that they've done in free agency other than securing Malik Willis should assure you of anything, because I think that removes any pressure that might exist in the back of your mind if you really like Ty Simpson. Like, see if he's there at 43. Don't draft him at 11.
Yeah. Like I said, I see the needs. Of course, offensive line. If there's a dude that you're in love with and he's there at 11, you take him because you're rebuilding. It's not like you're just picking players to fit to win now. You're looking for the future. If you got a guard or a tackle that you think is the real deal, you got to take them, and just start, stockpiling that old line up. And, you can, again, there's a lot of edge guys you could probably get in the second round too, So, now old linemen, as further you get down, or, sometimes it can be a little sketchy.
Maui Noah, there's the kid from Utah, Kyle, too, on the offensive line, who's pretty good, who's projected top 20. Caleb Lomu up there as well. But I don't think Sonny Styles might be there, and you might want to look at him after his combine. I don't think Maui Noah is going to be there. I wish Caleb Downs will be there, but I doubt it. He'd be the guy if he were there, in my opinion. And the other thing I would really strongly look at here, if he's available, but he won't be, so it's a moot point, I think is you trade Achane and pick Jeremiah Love. I mean, that kid, I mean, he might be once in a lifetime.
No.
Get your thoughts on him.
He won't be there.
Z had a visceral reaction, so I'd be a fool to step in and not let Z.
Yeah, he won't be there. Z, he's gone, right?
No, I think he's a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
So it's the size and the speed element combined, right? And like all the production and the vision, and he's kind of in that Bijan Robinson caliber prospect, and Bijan went 8th. I think what is interesting though is Arizona signed 3 free agent running backs. They pick at 3. I think Tennessee's under consideration after they spent the way that they did on their defense. But then you look at what it was like. Kansas City was perceived to be a spot at 9, and they signed Kenneth Walker. The Saints were a potential spot at 8, and they signed Travis Etienne to a $12 million deal. So I don't know if it's not Tennessee at 4. Is it New York at 5? Is it Washington at 7? Like it's a little more murky to I think he lost some landing spots in the top 10 because of how free agency played out.
Interesting. But Z says there's no way he'll be there. I tend to agree, Z. But if he's there, Z, do you like my idea? If he's there, would you take a shot on him and trade Achane if you could get enough for him?
If you get enough for him, I think everybody in that roster is on the trade block, to be honest with you. If you get something that you can't turn down, because again, you're rebuilding. And we keep saying over and over on this show that Sully wants more picks. So if someone calls on draft day or before, or right before your pick, I think he's going to listen. And if he gets what he wants, he's out. That person's out the door.
And I love Jeremiah Love. And you have to understand, for me as a Miami Hurricane, dyed in the wool, there are 3 teams that I love in college football. 1, my beloved Miami Hurricanes. 2, anyone who's playing the Ohio State Buckeyes. And 3, anyone who's playing the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So for me to say a Notre Dame guy should be the pick, that really is a lot for me to say. All right, it's Dolphin Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm going to tell you who I think the Dolphins should pick, and it might be a little bit of a reach, although he's climbing back up the board, and it's at their position of arguably the number 1 need. I want to see what Kyle and Z have to say about it, and then we'll get their guys as well. We'll keep it going with draft and free agency talk. We'll go around the NFL again before we bounce, and we will keep it going. Second half of the Dolphin Squad Show on the way right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But first, I'll tell you a little bit about FanDuel. And I'm not even taking the guys off the screen. Don't cough, guys. Don't swear. I'm going to keep you here. We're not messing with that audio again on the show. All right, here we go. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. It's so dope. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential with college basketball parlay profit boost. That's right. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits for you. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out, and then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. More money without more problems. You know what I'm saying? So go safe, go bold. Ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Man, I'll tell you what, one year I was 91 UNLV, 90 and 91 UNLV. I bet them every game. They were always late on the West Coast. I was in Connecticut in college. I made a grip on the running Rebels. But can you imagine, guys, the scandal that was around that team with Tark and being in Vegas? People think they threw the game against Duke. Could you imagine if there was sports gambling when Jerry Tarkanian was the coach at UNLV? Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, with a towel, man. Don't worry about it.
Yep, sit there biting a towel. It's his statue at UNLV is him biting a towel on the steps of the building.
I have no insight to provide on this talking point. I was 2 years old.
Self-esteem takes a hit on that one. I'm going to get it back to the draft, okay? Because Kyle's got a 2-year-old now. But let me tell you this, okay? I know who I'd pick right now if I'm Miami, if he's there. I like Jordan Tyson a lot from ASU. I know a lot about him. I have a couple friends on the coaching staff there. He's the real deal. A little bit of health stuff there with him, as Kyle mentioned, so I don't know if I'd go that direction, but you would have a solid receiver to go along with Jalen Waddle if you took him. The tight end, Kenyon Sadiq, from Oregon is another one. Kyle just mentioned him. He could really help the Dolphins, but with Dulcich and what they have at tight end, I don't know. I don't know if you go there either, but there is one guy, an edge rusher, who I love. And we talk about the length of Ruben Bain's arms, and he's still projected to go top 10, Z, but I'm telling you, man, I love Mesidor. I know you guys don't like him because he's an old man, but I love Mesidor. Remember when Derek Rogers was 25 when he came into the NFL with the Dolphins? I mean, sometimes that sort of thing happens, Z. Is it really that big a deal that he's coming in at 25 and a half years old?
Well, yeah, but he's a little stiff too, though.
When the average career is, 5 years for a guy like him? Anyway?
I don't know. I don't know what I mean. For D lineman, it's 2.5 years, I think, is the average. You know, if you look at the whole thing, which, I get it, but I think that I like Zion Young better and David Bailey better than him.
You think Bailey will be there? He's projected top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some lists where he, Mesidor was ahead of him, so he could be there according to some lists.
I like Mesidor's size at 280, Kyle. That's one of the big things I love about him.
Yeah. So what did he come into the combine at? Because I know the
65,
thing.
I think
the thing that I like about Mesidor is the fact that he's shown the ability between what he did at West Virginia and then what he was at the University of Miami. He's shown the ability to play at different weights and be a guy who can reduce inside and be a tweener, but then also I think he played a little lighter this year. I think he played closer to 265 this year for the Canes and cut the weight down. So you've got this very wide spectrum of implementation and roles that, depending on how big he stacks up to be, you can use him in different types of alignments. And I think that's the thing when you look at what the Dolphins have on the edge, you probably do want somebody who can play a tight alignment to an offensive tackle and play as the end at the point of attack. So, I mean, Mesidor came in at 259 at the combine. So he trimmed down to run. I think he's going to be an impactful player. It's just that tiebreaker going to age, and he doesn't have super elite length. That he's got 32-inch arms. I don't think he's as dominant as Bain, so I still like Bain more. But I think I would guess somebody in the back half of the first round is going to draft Mesidor, would be my guess on where he gets drafted.
I see him all the way up at 15, and I'm thinking you might take a flyer on him at 11. 6 years of college football, but there are a lot of guys out there. They are going to have, if you have a draft board and you're ready and you have your top players at every position, one of them is going to be there or more at 11. One or more of them are going to be there. So whatever direction they're going in, they're going to have their pick. They can always trade down, which we've talked about. So would you guys definitely take a shot on a player there? Or, obviously, if the player you want is gone, like if, say, it's Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles and you have your eye on one guy and he's gone, you have to be ready to trade down. But I'm thinking there will be a bunch of teams who are ready to trade up as the dominoes fall, Kyle. Do you feel that coming in this draft? I feel teams trading up. I haven't even seen the Chiefs trading up from where they are to try to get Jeremiah Love. They might not be done with just Kenneth Walker. I don't know.
It's so hard to predict how teams are going to value, because every year the currency, aka your draft picks, is valued so differently on a year by year basis based on the talent that's available in that year's draft. I think back to, was it 2000? What year was the Deion Jordan draft? Was that 2013 or 2012? I think it was 2013.
I thought it was 13.
They went up from 12 to 3 and only gave up pick 42 to go up 9 spots into the top 3 that year. That is insanely cheap to trade up. Yeah. And then you get these other years where if you want to go into the top 5, it's a non-starter unless you don't offer a day 2 pick this year and a first-round pick next year. So does what this class has to provide teams make it easier to move or harder to move? I think it makes it harder to give up future draft capital. So I think maybe the teams that have a plethora of picks this year maybe find it a little easier because they can dangle a bunch more in somebody's face. But I don't see, especially where Miami picks, if you're in a position where somebody's super eager to jump up and trade up, you probably should ask yourself with the state of your roster if that player's just too good for you to pass up too. And you would have to get a heck of a sweet offer, I think, to move out of that spot if there was one of those, wow, I can't believe this guy made it to 11 players.
What would that offer look like to you?
I mean, I would love to add some 2027 draft capital. I just got done saying how I think that's a hard sell, right? So if you're going to move down into the teens, can you get a day 3 pick this year and then a first or second round pick next year? Like that would be the kinds of things for me that if they're talking about building up the infrastructure and what they have to work with, at some point they're going to have to take something that they have and turn it into a bunch more swings so that they can spider web it out. And I don't know if 11 is the right spot to do that, but if I'm moving down from 11, unless there's like one possible scenario where the board shows up at 11, it's like, man, I do not like any of our options. At that case, I'd probably get down for cheap, but that's a pretty, you'd have to force some fits to get the 10 players off the board that I would hate to see off the board at 10.
Find out who the Cowboys want at 12, Z, and make a deal with Jerry. He's desperate to have that deal. He's desperate for his own version of the Herschel Walker trade. We know this about Jerry Jones, and they've missed out on everything, and they're picking right behind the Dolphins at 12, Z.
No, I know. I mean, Jerry's not done with his free agency yet. I think he might be sitting in the weeds for Crosby still. I mean, they have a plethora of defensive tackles, and I think they're going to move one of them before this is all said and done.
And if you don't trade down, Kyle, I think the Rams are going to trade down for more picks to make a run at Burrow next year. I've been seeing that everywhere. When Stafford goes, Burrow to LA, and they're going to want to accumulate as many picks as they can, talking about the Rams. So there are other teams in that mindset also.
Oh, if that's the Rams' grand master plan, they need to plan 2 years in advance because Joe has to sit out a year first, right? Because that's the Carson Palmer playbook. Is Carson wanted to trade and they didn't give it to him, so he said, okay, I'm going to sit out a year and retire and then unretire, and I still want to play, and then you'll trade me. So the Bengals are that team that they don't bend. They do not mess with, you're under contract, kick rocks, brother. Like that's pretty much their psychology. And I feel for Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow signed the contract, right? Like you put the pen to paper. You knew what Cincinnati was when you first got there. You knew what Cincinnati was, those first 3 years when stuff was real sweet. And, they drafted out of their mind for like a 3-year window, and that's what got them that Super Bowl run. And what it's been since is, Joe's got a bit of a ways to go in that contract yet. So I don't anticipate the Bengals conceding on any Joe Burrow unhappy requests.
I mean, just look at Trey. It took how long to get Trey to get out of there,
Yeah.
I mean, it took
and they
forever.
cost Trey a lot of money too.
Yeah, and he kind of just shut it down this year on his own, I think. Just to say, hey, listen, I ain't playing for this,
They can't stand prosperities either. If Arizona's the armpit, Cincinnati's the butt crack of the NFL. I mean, these two franchises can't stand prosperity. You go to the Super Bowl and then immediately go not just sink. I mean, like a stone. The Cardinals and the Bengals, man. I throw those two in the same category with the Cleveland Browns. I mean, what's in the water in Ohio, Z? You're from that part of the country.
No, I'm not. I'm from Chicago.
I know you're not from Ohio, but from the Midwest.
Hell out of here.
Midwest. What is it about Ohio, man?
I don't know. I don't care because I don't live there. And I never, I say never. I can't say that, in this business.
The Browns call tomorrow. Hey,
I'm gone. See you later. I'm away from Greece. Woohoo! Here we go.
I don't know, man, but that's terrible.
By the lake.
The Bengals, man, they go to the Super Bowl. They dangle the carrot in front of their fans. They're an Aaron Donald millisecond hitting Burrow on that throw away from an 80-yard touchdown to win the Super Bowl, and then they sink like a stone right after. But we're, of course, talking about the Dolphins here. And we kicked the tires a little bit on, maybe Joe Burrow coming to Miami, Lamar Jackson at times, and that just speaks to the absurdity of playing QB in the NFL. You just never know what's going to happen, man, and especially when you play for a team like the Bengals. But to your point, Kyle, I mean, you're like, good luck, man. You're in Alcatraz/Rikers. Like, you're in the hole when you're with the Bengals. That's crazy. Interesting. But the Dolphins, I mean, Malik Willis, if he works out, the numbers are really good. And we talked about the draft. You could trade down. You could get more capital there. Do you guys think, Kyle, with you first, do you think any of those offensive playmakers that we talked about quickly, like, you talked about Sadiq a little bit, Jordan Tyson, would you take a flyer on Tyson if he's there in that spot?
He'd be pretty – I can guarantee you, for me personally, Tyson will not be my best available player on the board at 11. And that's just looking at like the way that I have the players graded. And I've got a top 12 and I have a grade on Jordan Tyson where I have like a late 1 on him. He's not in my top 15. So just mathematically speaking, I know it's mathematically impossible for him to show up and be that top player. If the board runs off a certain way, I could see him being in the bucket with the best of it. Like, if I've got top 10 grades and all my top 10 grades are gone, and then I've got my top 20 grades and all my top 20 grades are gone, and then my late first round guys are all there at 11, I could see him being in the tier that is all the best players, but he probably wouldn't be the player that I would champion for, because when you get into those buckets, things like the medical questions become the tiebreakers that, especially with the Dolphins who need a hit with this pick, probably nudges you to use that as a tiebreaker to push you in a different direction.
All right, that's Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins. That's Jeff Zgonina, former Dolphins defensive lineman. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Gries. Dolphin Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, of course, live on YouTube. Then we upload, you download. Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher, Podbean, Roku, and the Tegna family of TV stations around the country that shows our show as well. So wherever you're watching or listening or downloading from, thank you for helping us be the #1 sports podcast network. The Dolphins just signed a cornerback who started the last 10 games last year on his previous team. Kyle Krabs tells you all about it on the other side. Very quick break for the YouTubers, full one for the rest of you. Dolphin Squad Show. Another potential impact signing for the Miami Dolphins, and we can see what the philosophy is from this new regime, Kyle, with some of the moves that are being made right now.
Yeah, Darryl Baker. You talk about Darryl Baker.
Darryl Baker.
Signing. Yeah, out of Tennessee. He was a restricted free agent who the Titans did not put a tender on, which allowed him to become an unrestricted free agent. The Dolphins are signing him. He played almost 2,000 snaps across his first 3 seasons in the NFL. Tall. I think that's the commonality, because they re-signed A.J. Green today, too, who was with the team for the back portion of the season. You think about Juju Brents is 6'3", right? Miles Battle, who they signed once John Eric Sullivan got here, he's 6'3". He was off the Patriots practice squad. Lonnie Johnson, they signed today. He's a safety, but he's 6'2". Darryl Baker, 6'1". They put a exclusive rights free agent tender on Ethan Bonner. He's 6'1". A lot of big corners that they're going after. So, like, I'm just noticing, you start taking inventory on common trends between players with a regime that comes in. He's another one of the tall corners, and he's got good length. But the thing that stands out the most about Baker is kind of the linear explosiveness. He had a 41.5-inch vert when he came through the NFL Combine. He had an 11'4" broad jump as a 190-plus pound corner, right? And so now you got some playing experience. He's a physical guy. He's an explosive guy. He's a big, long guy. I think you're starting to kind of see the flavor of corner that they like. And they want guys, and Jeff Hafley he was at Ohio State at the time, but he did an outstanding coaching clinic on press technique, and how he coaches guys to press, and the value of press, and why he likes press. And you look at what they had in Green Bay last year, and it was kind of a group of guys that maybe didn't have a lot of that DNA in them. And it's always interesting when you become the head coach, you get a chance to kind of infuse your core beliefs, and you're working hand in hand with the general manager who well, and the theme here being the length and the size is undeniable at this point for corners in the Dolphins.
And Z, the durability of Baker too. He started the last 10 games for Tennessee, played 97% of the snaps in those games, and that's that says a lot too. Durability is really important out there.
Yeah, without a doubt. You want to be so on the field all the time, and you bring them in, and that's what you want. You don't want somebody that's a part-timer, especially at corner, because corners, they don't sub out like D linemen. The back half, unless you're the nickel comes and goes, but the corners and the safeties, they're in there all the snaps, usually 100% of the snaps, and that's what you want, a durable guy out there.
And Kyle, you told me earlier that all the unrestricted or all the restricted free agents become unrestricted, right? So what does that mean about the DBs, who we've been talking about coming back possibly next year, the Dolphins' current free agents, the corners?
So none of the corners were, I think it was Matthew Butler and Julian Hill, the tight end, were the only two restricted free agents that the Dolphins could have put a tender on, where like once you're past 3 years of tenure in the league, you become an unrestricted free agent when your contract expires. So it'll be interesting to see with both Jack Jones and with Rasul Douglas, if there's any interest in bringing those guys back. I would guess probably not, because they're probably going to cost a little bit more than $1.5 million or something like that, which is kind of when you look at names like AJ Green and Darryl Baker, like I'd be surprised if Darryl Baker was more than a $2 million contract. So that's where the price, I think, is just going to catch up with you, where they get about $8 million in cap space after the Austin Jackson stuff happened. Maybe it's a little bit more, depending on like if they chose to do any funny money with the Malik Willis or the Greg Dulcich contracts. But I think they're going to have to be pretty selective on guys that they're spending north of like $2.5 million on. And I don't know that those two vet guys are going to be a part of that calculus.
Z, this is every year in the NFL, man. It's every single year. And as this coaching staff puts its imprint on this team and the franchise, we can clearly see the direction, Z. It's big, it's physical, toughness, durability, those types of things coming from Green Bay.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you want in on your team, as a coach and, as a fan. You want to be the tough guy on the block. You don't want to be, the push-around guy, the finesse guy. I mean, for years, like when I was in St. Louis, we were finesse because we were so good on offense. We were a fast-paced team. But on defense, we were hard-nosed, and that's similar to what the Dolphins were when I was there. We were hard-nosed, both offense and defensively, especially when Wannstedt was there, because he ran Ricky in the ground, and he just wanted to be smash-mouth football on both sides of the ball, and that's what we were, and that's what you want, because that's what wins it later in the season, are the tough, hard-nosed teams.
Yeah, and it is official, Kyle. Bradley Chubb, 3 years, 43.5 with Buffalo. So that's the number one headline now going around the league. So things are happening really quickly around the league. The edge rushers are going. The Daniel Jones deal is crazy. Kyler Murray's still out there. Excuse me. Kyler Murray's still out there. No real direction on him yet. Max Crosby going back to the Raiders. Z, we were talking about that earlier, and we shifted gears to Bradley Chubb, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. How do the Raiders save face with Crosby now? He was pissed last year. They shut him down when he didn't want to be shut down. Gruden had to go. He loved Gruden. It's just been a shit show for Crosby in Vegas, and now he's got to go back there, man. There's no way they can mend that fence, is there?
Well, yeah, you can always mend a fence. I mean, again, it's a new head coach. It's new coaches. His D-line coach is now the coordinator, Robbie Leonard. She's got that face in there. You got Robbie will always have his back. Max's back. I mean, there's ways to massage it over. And get Max back in the groove. At the end of the day, he's got a contract. What's he gonna do? Sit out and lose $36 million? Isn't that what his contract's this year? I mean, he's not dumb. He's not gonna do that. He's gonna show up for his stuff and make his money and perform on the field, because at the end of the day, he is a competitor, because that dude plays with his hair on fire, and he's not going to go out there and just go through the motions. So again, it'll take a while to get back in the groove of things, see that, what Kubiak's got going on, and, and fall in line and produce, or, his agent will go out and find someone to trade for him, one of the two. But I don't see he's going to be disgruntled, because he really hasn't been that disgruntled through all this. He hasn't been like out in the podium and saying this, that, and the other. He expresses displeasure for being sat and not finishing the season. But I think at the end of the day, if they have to keep him, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Man, that's interesting too. And people around the league calling the Ravens shady and saying what they did was shady and that. And now breaking news that the Ravens are definitely pivoting to Trey Hendrickson, and that's something that should be official soon. Kyle, do you see what the Ravens did as shady?
I think the timing is very hard to not look a certain kind of way. to go and, it was announced this morning that they'd agreed to terms with Hendrickson on a deal worth up to $30 million a season. Right. So I know the reporting had kind of said, they had Crosby in for his physical, and they were also talking to Trey Hendrickson and asking Crosby about playing with Trey Hendrickson. Yeah, Baltimore was going to pay two guys $30 million a year rush passer, right? Like, there was no way. So I think the timing makes it difficult to give Baltimore the benefit of the doubt. Now, Eric DeCosta, the GM, he was up at the podium at 5:00, and he spoke to the press, and he said, upon our assessment of the situation, we couldn't move forward with the processing of the trade. He didn't mention medicals or anything like that. So it's one of the most odd, unique situations I can remember in the last couple of years, for sure. And, I like I said at the top of the show, I think Baltimore's better off with this being their path, but also I think this is something that from the end of the regular season to the start of the league year, Baltimore's probably not going to have too many phone calls the next couple of years, because this is a precedent that's now been set of, we're going to verbally agree to a trade. We're going to move through processing, do physicals, and then you're going to back out at the 11th hour after we negotiated a bunch of money for other players.
Yeah. Hey, Kyle, let me ask you this. Wasn't Baltimore involved with the TO one too?
If I remember correctly, there was something there with Terrell Owens that happened too. Yeah. Now, obviously that was with Ozzie as compared to with DeCosta. DeCosta took over in, what was it, 18? His last draft was the 18 class. So, and he's been at the helm for almost a decade now, but these are the kinds of things, you know what it reminds me of? Not anywhere near as extreme, but you remember when Josh McDaniels got hired as the Colts head coach and then backed out the day before his introductory press conference?
Yeah.
And they ended up they had signed assistant coaches to,
they signed a majority of the staff.
Yeah. And they honored all of those contracts, which I thought was a first-class move by the Colts. But that's the kind of thing that people don't forget something like that. Right. So now a blockbuster trade goes public and you set plans for your whole offseason and spend a bunch of money. And then you call them up and say, never mind, for an ambiguous medical assessment at best. That's the kind of thing people aren't going to forget,
No, because you knew he had a bum knee. I mean, you knew he was going to peel.
Yeah, and Belichick did the same thing with the Jets. But I just, to your point, Z, I want to pick up on that, right? He's in Baltimore for the physical. There's no surprises in a deal like this at that point. You've talked to the doctors. You've talked to the surgeons. You know exactly what the timeline is. You know exactly every single thing to a T on that player. And then you pull out. They just had second thoughts, man. They had second thoughts and decided that after they did it, they had remorse and they thought they were paying too much for him. I mean, to me, allegedly, I'll say that, so I don't get in trouble, but that's a bunch of BS, man. They knew everything and they just decided to back out. That's how I see it. Is there any other scenarios? There's no way they found something they didn't know. Not in today's day and age.
I don't think so, because I'm sure Max went to one of these guru knee guys like Andrews.
Ella Trash, He went to Ella Trash.
And I'm sure, Baltimore's dealt with this doctor with some of their athletes that have probably gone there. So, I know they did the due diligence. And then their doctor said no. Who knows? I mean, I have no idea. Like I said, I'm not going to say one way or the other. I'm just going to say, for Max, it sucks because he thought he was out. He's probably looking at houses in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And I know he's got that beautiful house down in Vegas, but he probably would have kept that. But I'm sure he was getting ready to a fresh start, and he just wanted to play football because that's all that kid wants to do is play football.
Yeah, and for a guy who never knew he was going to be an NFL player, who barely made it into the league by the skin of his teeth, who's had the career he has, making the money he has, there's no way it can be bad to be Max Crosby, Z.
Hey, I want to say one thing about Max. He just celebrated 6 years of sobriety, which is a big thing for him. And, because if you ever, people don't know his story, he has some issues, and damn, there was almost out of football because of him. And he, he just had a big party, and, hats off to him for, staying the straight and narrow for 6 years.
Yep, no doubt. And Kyle, we only got a couple minutes left. The show went by fast. Just real quick, want to do a recap of the Dolphins today, Wednesday, March 11th, and just get Kyle's thoughts on what's going on here in Miami with everything. So AJ Green III re-signed, right? That was the latest one. Bradley Chubb goes to Buffalo. We knew he was gone, didn't know he was going to the Bills, although we kind of speculated with that. The post-June 1st designation for Bradley Chubb. They signed Joshua Uche, a veteran pass rusher who's played for the Patriots and the Eagles, was with the Eagles last year. They re-signed Willie Gay Jr., KJ Britt signed with the Patriots, and then they restructured Austin Jackson's contract, Kyle, to get cap compliant by 4 p.m. today. Am I dead on with all those? Are we missing anything?
So they also extended Matthew Butler, who is an expiring contract at defensive tackle. What name did you not mention, though?
Baker, the corner.
No. A certain quarterback, left-handed quarterback on the roster.
Oh,
so
Tua?
They
Malik Willis.
did not formally release Tua as of like the deadline for 4:00 or whatever today.
Oh.
So this is interesting to me because you go back to his contract had that
$3 million, right?
That it was a $15 million option bonus that they could have exercised, that you can, if you pay it to him as an option bonus and you use the bonus, it's a $15 million payment that would then be spread out against the cap. And if you decline it, it just goes back into your base salary. And if you declined it, that's when the Dolphins would lose the $11 million on the post-June 1st designated cut. So I do wonder, because it hasn't been formally announced that Tua has been released, are they taking the start of the league year, because they have until Friday when like the $3 million in 2027 money guarantees? Are they exercising the option bonus to pay it so that they can spread out a little bit more of the dead cap for when they release him, so that they don't lose $11 million in cap space on June 2nd? It just was interesting to me that, like, because I pulled it up as we're sitting here and I'm looking at the transactions and everything that's formally announced. And the big news was like, oh, Kirk Cousins and Kyler Murray are officially released at 4:00. Well, Tua wasn't on it. And then Bradley Chubb was released with a post-June 1st designation, and there's no mention of Tua. So the statement says, we have informed Tua Tagovailoa that he will be released after the start of the new league year. Not at 4:00. Not, Bradley Chubb, you knew he was going to be a cut. So I'm just sitting here wondering to myself, like, are they going to do the bookkeeping loophole to save $11 million in cap space in June?
And this is why we're spoiled, Z. This is why we're spoiled with Kyle here. All of us. You,
wondering
me,
out loud.
The audience, everything.
Pondering, as they say.
I'm pondering.
Awesome stuff. People in Atlanta waiting on that news as well. So that's Kyle's final thought. What else do you have coming up on the channel, Kyle?
Whatever the news brings our way. We'll
go.
see. Well, I got to do some film study tonight on some of the guys that obviously are getting signed. I want to do a Darryl Baker film review. I still am intending to do the Malik Willis start versus Baltimore this year. I want to do the film study on that one. So we'll do some stuff like that, and then whatever transactions we get.
Sweet. Great job as always. And Z, your final thought for the day?
We're in first place. We're undefeated.
First place,
no doubt. And my final thought for the day is they're right on par with what they said they were going to do. They're right there. You can tell that they've had a very solid plan. You can tell that whatever that plan is, and you may or may not like it, and time will tell, right, in the NFL, but they're definitely in that position for a reason. They sold them on the plan in the interviews. They got the jobs, and now the plans are in effect. But don't blink. Many more things coming your way, and a lot of big-time free agents still out there as you look at that market. Where will Kyler Murray end up? Maybe Minnesota. What I'm seeing, the shocker for me, Daniel Jones from the Colts, but all kinds of things. So don't blink, and we don't have a show till Monday. So keep coming back and watching Kyle, listening to Kyle, and then for Z and me, we will be back on Monday with another episode of your Dolphin Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, #1 in the world, and your team every day. Thank you, everybody, from the everydayer right on down to the newbie who found us today, for helping us be #1 in the world of sports and be the number 10 channel on that network. Keep your game tight and your mind right. We'll see you Monday with your Dolphin Squad Show.